Well, I'm back now with the Tempest Act 1, Scene 2. And you can see in front, you have the text. I have opened out the text in front of you. I've numbered the lines according to how the text that I'm using is numbered. That is the common text that's being used across the country. So I've decided to use the Verity edition. If the numbering is slightly different in your text, then do pardon me, but it is as close to the text that we all use. Now, when we move to Act 1, Scene 2, I have divided the scene into three parts, as I had mentioned it in the introductory lesson. The first part is the scene between Prospero and Miranda, father and daughter. And in some ways, I regard this scene as sort of continuing with the theme of exposition, because we can understand the present situation only when we know what has happened in the past. Yes, so the past, dictates our present circumstances, and here the past is revealed, and it is more not just for Miranda to know about the past, but the audience as well. So it forms a very important expository scene, continuing with what Act 1, Scene 1 was, right? So, but what I'm going to do is I'm not going to read the lines. You can read the lines right in front of you, but what the gist of each speech is what I'm going to highlight. And in the very first speech of Miranda, she feels when she sees the tempest, she's heard the roaring of the waves, she can see the shipwreck, and so in her mind, and she also is aware of her father's magical powers. So she says that if it is by your art that you have created this magic, then my prayer to you is, please, please, let all this subside, let the tempest calm down, and let the sky, which is it appears as if the sky is seems would pour down stinking pitch, but that the sea mounting to the welkin's cheek dashes the fire out. So that entire image that is being created is as if the sky, which is pitch dark, as if it is like it's a molten tar-like substance is falling down onto the ship below. Yes, and but that the sea mounting to the welkin's cheek, and the sea, the waves are being so sort of affected by this storm that they are huge waves are rising and about touching the very sky from where the tar-like substance is flowing down. So the kind of atmosphere that has been created by the tempest, it appears that the waters and the sky are all one. Is one sequence of the whole thing. Yes. So I would like you to allay it. Yes. Let it calm down. Yes. And she says, I've suffered because I've seen the people on the ship crying out, and they've suffered. And I know that there are many noble creatures on that ship, and the ship is being dashed to the grounds, and it has caused me a lot of pain to hear their anguish. Yes. And if I had, and that's what Miranda says, if had I been any god of power, I would have sunk the sea within the earth. So if I had some powers, if I were like Neptune, like the sea god, if I had powers, then I would have, what would I have done? I would have reduced the water to such an extent that there was nothing for the ship to sink into. It would just have been on barren ground. Yes, and I would not want the ship to sink totally into the waters, and along with it all the wonderful souls that are there, frotting souls, he said. And frotting, of course, is those people on board the ship who are in pain. Yes, that is the frotting. Yes. Prospero, be collected, no more amazement. He is very calm about it. So here we get to know that the tempest was not created by nature. It was created by Prospero's art, his magic, right? So tell your piteous heart there is no harm done. no harm has come to them, yes. No harm have I done, nothing but in care of thee. And whatever I have done only because of you, yes. Whatever I've done is for your sake, yes. Uh, my daughter, who art ignorant of what thou art, you don't know who you are. You don't know your lineage. You don't know where you have come from. Uh, you just know that we live here on this island, the poor living that we are in, yes, and I am just an ordinary man, that's all you know, yes. Well, and what does Miranda say? But I never wanted to know more than what was there, yes. I was not curious enough to know more than what it is. And then Prospero said, but now it is time. It is time now for you to know much more than what you know, because the time has come for you to know the truth. So what does he do? He removes the magic garment. You know, in during the Elizabethan time, when I saw this play, the costumes really sort of actually was very important, because they indicated your position in society, they indicated your profession. Because at that time, remember, the makeup and all that was not too much as it is now. Like everything could be handled with makeup. The costumes became predominant. So the magic robe that he was wearing indicates, when he wears that, he becomes Prospero the magician. And now when he's removing that cloak, he is Prospero the father, right? So here lies my art. That is my magic robe, which actually makes me the magician that I am. Yes. And then he does tell her that wipe your tears, whatever you saw, that entire scene that of the shipwreck. Let me tell you, let me assure you that I know it has caused you a lot of pain. Your compassionate heart has been very distressed. Yes, but he says that not a soul, that's very important. Because of my magic, not a single hair on anyone's head has been adversely harmed. So no harm has come to anyone on board that ship. No, not so much perdition as an hair betid to any creature in the vessel. So no harm has come to anyone aboard that ship. Yes, so you don't have to mourn for their pain or their loss. Yes, so, and then he goes on to say that forget about you what you have seen now, because what I want to tell you is of much more importance. And then Miranda says, many a times in the past you did begin to tell me, but stopped and left me to a bootless inquisition. You know, it was like a bootless inquisition, like it was in a, like I was in a state of uh, where I didn't know more than what I was being told, and I was not in a position to even ask of you more to be said, because each time you stopped me. Yes, because it was a kind of questioning that was happening, which ended in me always being silenced by you. Okay. So Prospero, what he says is, see, the time was not right then. The hour has come now. Now is the right time for you to know the truth. Yes. So pay attention, and you'll see that every time he's talking, in between he keeps repeating, pay attention, obey and be attentive. And then the first question that he asked, do you remember a time before we came here onto this island? Do you remember anything? And for the first time, we also get to know that when Miranda came to the island, you were she was about 3 years old. And they've lived in the island for 12 years. So she's about 15 now. So I told you the unity of time. Remember that, yes? And Miranda says, of course, I do remember. Prospero is surprised. And what do you remember? Do you remember the place where you stayed? Do you remember any people? What kind of memories do you have? She says it's a very sort of a hazy dream. It's in my subconscious, yes. It is more like a dream than a reality. So it's something very hazy. I cannot pinpoint it. Yes, I feel it is there, but I'm not absolutely sure about it. Is it were 4 or 5 women used to look after me? I have an image of seeing people tending to me, looking after me. Prospero is surprised. Of course you had, but how it's very surprising that you remember this, that you had people looking after you. Yes. What else? He asked. Can you see in that deep, dark abyss? You know, it's dark because it's in your past. It's something which is clothed in mystery, in a deep pit where you have to sort of try to dig and decipher things. So what more can you decipher? What more can you remember? How did you come here? Do you remember that? Miranda says, well, I don't know that. So Prospero says, it's been 12 years. Yes, 12 years we have been here. And says, your father was the Duke of Milan and he was a very powerful man. Yes. So you see what is Miranda's natural reaction? Oh, my father is the Duke of Milan, so you're not my father. See, she cannot put two and two together. And then Prospero says, your mother was a piece of virtue. Your mother was an extremely virtuous woman. And she always maintained that you were my daughter and I was your father. So I am the Duke of Milan. And you are my only heir, the Duke of Milan's only heir. Yes. And then you can imagine how surprised and shocked Miranda is. He said, so her reaction is, oh the heavens, how did this happen? What foul play had we? You see, her thought immediately goes to foul play. Why? Because their situation now is deplorable, right? They are without basic amenities. They are on an island which does not have the bare essentials. So she realizes that it's a coming down from where they were. So it says, what treachery were we subject to that we had to come here? Or was it a blessing that we came here? Two things. Yes. So were we subject to a lot of treachery that we landed here? Or was it a blessing that we are here on the island? What would your answer be? Yes. Don't you think you would consider it a blessing? Because if they were not on the island, what do you think would have happened? I'll leave you. As we discuss, you will get the answers. So Prospero immediately says, both, my girl. Yes, we were thrown out of our position by some acts of treachery and deceit. Yes, and again, by some heavenly grace, we were saved and we came on to the island. So it was both an act of deceit and an act of blessing. Act of deceit was being thrown out, removed from the position of power. An act of blessing was we survived that act of treachery, right? And we came upon the island. And there's a long speech by Miranda. And what does she say? Oh, my heart bleeds. She says that I shudder to think how much of pain I would have caused you because I was still a child. Yes. And I feel that I must have put you through a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. Yes. Tell me more. To think of the teen that I have turned you to, which is from my remembrance. Please you, Father. Yes. So tell me more. Tell me more because I need to know some more that happened. Then this passage that was not a long speech by Miranda. The long passages by Prospero, who actually now narrates the entire past. They're very, very important from lines 80 to lines 92. Please mark it out, 80 to 92. My brother and thy uncle, call Antonio. I pray thee mark me, that a brother should be so perfidious. So for the first time, we are being introduced to another side of Antonio. We were introduced to Antonio in Act 1, Scene 1, right? He was on the ship. So he said, there is a brother. But he said, but what does she say? What does Prospero say? That you would never come across a brother who was such a deceitful, insidious character. Yes. He whom next thyself of all the world I loved, and to him put the manage of my state. So he was the one whom I loved. Apart from myself and you, he was the one I loved the most. So what was Prospero doing? Prospero says he wanted to devote more time to his studies, right? And because of that, he handed over the responsibility of Milan to his brother, yes, to manage the state, and so that he could involve himself in his studies. And of course, because Antonio was the senior most, he was Prospero's brother. And so he was spending all his time in the library studying, and the entire reins of the government was given on to Antonio. And as he spent more of time being alone in his library, getting all the knowledge that he wanted to, his control over Milan was gradually eroding. It was taken away by his brother. Yes. And he repeats, thy false uncle. And you see again, like, does thou attend me? Are you paying attention? Do not think of other things. Pay attention to what I'm saying. So then he goes on. Being once perfected how to grant suit. So once Antonio learned the art of running a state, how to manage the affairs of the state. So what did he do? He knew whom to please, he knew whom to discard. He learned the art of, more than diplomacy, he learned the art of being a good, true politician, playing politics, yes. He also realized who would be the yes men that he should have around him, yes, very much similar to the political scenario in the world. So he wanted people around him to be loyal to him. So he identified those who were loyal to him, yes, and those who were not loyal to him, he gradually moved them away from any positions of responsibility. So he creatures that were mine, he say changed them or else formed them. Either he just removed them or he molded them to suit his own interest. So what at the end of it, he had the power of the state, he also had the power of the people, he had the full support of those people who would help him in running the state. And once he understood that he could now rule without my help and without my support, he did the inevitable. If you see, there's a lovely, very apt image here. It's a kind of a metaphor that now he was the ivy which had hid my princely trunk and sucked my verdure out on it. So, you know, the ivy that sucks out the actual meat of a plant. So he was like the ivy, Antonio, and he wound himself around um, the power of Milan that was granted to him by his brother, and took out the very pith of Prospero's control, took over the control. So took out all the power that Prospero wielded, and so assumed all, became all powerful, assumed all power. And again Prospero, thou attendest not. He said, you're not listening. No. Miranda said, I am. And then Prospero continues, I pray thee mark me, I thus neglecting worldly ends all. He accepts in lines 104 onwards. Prospero accepts his mistake. He accepts that he neglected the affairs of the state. He was so busy with his own erudition, his own, steeped himself in his own education, his learning magic, learning the state of other philosophies. He probably did not do justice as a Duke of Milan. He neglected the affairs of the state. And of course, you should not condemn him, because what he did was right. He gave all the responsibility to his brother, assuming that his brother would have uh, the best control over the affairs of the state. Yes, but by being so retired, overpriced, all populate in my false brother awaked an evil nature. But what happened? I did not realize that my brother was not the same or made of the same metal as I was. He was evil. There was within him the kind of greed for power that came to life now that he was given the power by me. Yes. And my trust, like a good parent, did beget of him a falsehood in its contrary. So I, like a good parent, trusted him. But what did trust beget? Trust did not beget trust. It gave rise to falsehood. So, when too much is given, things are taken for granted. So perhaps he took my trust for granted, and that trust changed into total mistrust, to the extent that he was thinking of becoming the rightful Duke of Milan, and not just somebody who has been given powers for the time being. Yes. A confidence sans bound. Yes, so he became very confident about his power, about his position, and limitless confidence. He felt that as if he was omnipotent, all powerful. Nothing would stop him now from assuming all power and responsibility. He being thus lauded not only with what my revenue yielded, but what my power might exact, like one who, having into truth by telling of it, made such a sinner of his memory to credit his own lie, he did believe he was indeed the Duke. So what happened? He started living the lie. What was the lie he was living? That he was indeed the rightful Duke of Milan. He had the full control over the state. He had the revenue under his control, finance under his control. He had all the men whom I left behind under his power. So he assumed that he was the rightful Duke of Milan. Yes. So he forgot how he came upon this power. Like much a sinner of his memory. His memory became something that he did not pay heed to. A sinner of his memory. Beautiful use of a word. So when do you become a sinner? When you do not believe in your thoughts, right? So he started believing in a lie. He forgot about the actual events that had taken place. And his lie became the truth. His lie became, the memory was forgotten of how he was granted power. The lie was that he was the real Duke of Milan. So his ambitions started growing. Yes. He forgot that he was a substitute Duke. Yes. And he assumed all powers, and his ambitions started growing. Again, are you following me? Miranda says, of course, this is a tale that one has to intently follow. Now, he became absolute Milan. What do you mean by absolute Milan? He assumed to be the Duke of Milan. Yes? So there was no screen. So that entire, that he was given a part to play was destroyed once and forever. And he took over the reins in totality. But remember, Prospero was still there. He was still there in his library. And there were still people who were aware of Prospero's presence. Yes? And he thought that now, because I was so busy with my library was my entire Milan, so he decided that he would ask the help of our nearest neighbor, the King of Naples, to whom he promised that he would pay an annual tribute in exchange of helping him to overthrow Prospero. So you got it? He couldn't do it with people from his own city state. So he decided to use the king of Naples. He said, well, and Milan was a free independent. So he gives up his independence. He gives up the independence of Milan to pay an annual tribute to the king of Naples in exchange of destroying Prospero, killing him, banishing him forever. Yes. So Milan loses his sovereignty, Prospero loses his state, his position, and everything falls into the hands of King of Naples for a petty sum of money. Miranda can only gasp in anguish, oh the heavens. Mark his condition and the event, then tell me if this might be a brother. See what he has done. See what he stooped down to, and then tell me whether a brother can be such. Yes. And what does Miranda say? I should sin to think, but nobly of a grandmother. Good wombs have borne bad sons. He said, if I think badly of my uncle, it would mean that I'm thinking ill of my grandmother. But she says, it is known that the same person can give birth to two people who can be so different from each other. So I can believe it. I can believe what you have told me, how wicked and vile my uncle was, in contrast to your goodness. So, what was the condition? Prospero goes back to the condition from line 140 onwards. Yes. The king of Naples, don't mind the number written in black, it's numbers written in red that you should worry about. This king of Naples, being an enemy to me inveterate, it was a long-standing enemy. King of Naples has been a long-standing enemy. He immediately accepted, because this was his chance to take over Milan, to have control over Milan. Yes. And he accepted it. Yes. And he came immediately to remove me from Milan, yes, and confer the dukedom of Milan to Antonio. This way, the king of Naples would assume all powers, yes, for a petty sum of an annual tribute, yes. And one midnight, which was chosen, yes, the army of Naples was sent, a group of people were sent from Naples. Antonio opened the gates for them, yes, and in the darkness of the night, such acts of treachery can always happen in the darkness of the night. You, 3-year-old, my 3-year-old daughter and I were removed, yes, taken away from our own land, yes, me and thy crying self. And then Miranda says, I don't remember how much I must have cried then, but hearing you tell me this, I feel like crying all over again. Tears are welling up into my eyes. And then Prospero says, this story doesn't end there. Yes, I'll tell you why I'm narrating the story at this point in time. There is a reason why I'm narrating the story to you today. Yes. But Miranda's question is, why didn't they kill us then? At that moment, why didn't they kill us? So Prospero said, that's a very good question that you asked. Well demanded, wench. The story that I am telling you, the way it's progressing, it does deserve that question. Dear, they durst not, so dear the love my people bore me, nor set a mark so bloody on the business, but with colours fairer painted their foul ends. So he says there are two reasons why. One is, my people loved me a lot, so they could not suddenly announce that I had died, and so did my daughter. People would understand that there was something foul happening then. Second was, they did not want to make it into a death, the ultimate, because then their position, then Antonio knew that he would be questioned if he announces that I am dead. Yes, because then the the deceit and the foul play would come into focus. Yes. So what did they do? They did something very simple. They took they took us out into a boat that was in ramshackle state, that would hardly last a few minutes into the rough seas. So they put us into such a boat, yes, and they pulled us out into the deep sea, a rotten carcass of a boat. There was nothing for me to keep it afloat, not rigged, no ropes, no tackle. You didn't have the pins. There was no sail, no mast. It's believed that the very rats instinctively have quitted. The rats leave anything that is about to be destroyed. The rats are the first ones to leave it, right? So this was one carcass of a boat that even the rats wouldn't have ventured out into. So that's where they put us into, and they put us out into the sea. Yes. So that we would be lost forever, gone forever, forgotten forever. And with time, the people of Milan would have forgotten us. So no announcements about death, no announcements about anything, disappearance, but just plain forgotten. Yes. To sigh to the winds whose pity sighing back did us but loving wrong. Yes. So it was loving wrong. So the use of loving wrong. Why? Because there was some breeze in it. There was some breeze that sort of kept probably the boat afloat. Yes. This, our sighs were echoed by the sighing winds, that's there. But there was a wind. So probably that wind was something that kept the boat afloat. Yes. And then he says, Miranda is ruing the fact. I must have caused you so much of trouble. And what does Prospero say? No, cherubim, my little angel. It was because of you that I wanted to remain alive. If it wasn't for you, I would have embraced death. It was your smile that gave me the courage to keep alive, gave me the courage to keep the boat afloat, gave me the courage to bear the burden of that moment. Yes, where we were without food, we were without water, but survival became important for me because I wanted to live for your reason. Just for you, I wanted to live. Because you didn't deserve this kind of death. You deserved a good life. And because of that, I decided to live. I fought against the elements. And perhaps it's because of that nature supported us. So the immediate question that Miranda asked, how came we ashore? So how did we come here then? Yes, by providence, by fate. It's all fate, he says, by providence. We had some food and some fresh water. Here we have a reference to Gonzalo. Remember when we discussed Act 1, Scene 1, I mentioned Gonzalo, the counselor. There's some goodness in him. The goodness is revealed now. He was the one who gave food, fresh water, and the most important thing, clothes. He gave me books, knowing I loved my books. Out of his charity, who being then appointed master of this design, he was appointed. He was leading the army of Naples to take us away. He did give us with rich garments, linen, stuffs, and accessories. So he was the one who provided us with everything. And most of all, he gave me all the books because I loved the books. And everything, all the volumes from the library that he found, he took them all, which were more precious to me than even the dukedom. He kept all of them in the boat, and probably because of that, we survived. So Miranda says, will I ever get to see this angel? Yes. What does Prospero do? He gets up and he puts his mantle. His role of a father has ended. He has told Miranda the story of her past. He has told us, the audience, the story of why the tempest has happened now. Sit still and hear the last of our sea sorrow. The last part of the story. We came upon this island. And here I have been your guide, your teacher, your mentor, your instructor. And you have learned much more than what the other princesses would have learned, because you didn't have any other distraction, nor did I have any other distraction. My time was devoted to teaching you everything that you need to know, and your time was devoted to learning everything that you had to learn from me. So, probably because of that, you know much more than anybody of your age knows. Yes. So, Miranda is thankful for it. Yes. But I still, she says, I don't know why you raised the tempest. You haven't told me that reason. So Prospero says, by a strange act of destiny, by accident, all my enemies of the past have come very close to this island of ours. Yes, they have come very close to this island of ours. So we know that on the ship, we know the characters who are there. We know the Duke of Naples, the King of Naples was involved in this conspiracy. So was Antonio, his brother. So they are all on board the ship. So he says, I got to know, and by my prescience, by this art of foretelling, so by instinct, when I can gauge what is going to happen, the foreknowledge of things before they happen. So, but I have that power. Yes, I I realized that the wheels of fortune has turned, and the time has come for me to exact revenge for that act that took place 12 years ago. Yes. Whose influence, if now I quote not, but omit my fortunes, will ever after prove. Yes. So he says that, it is believed then and even now that a man's life and character is sort of influenced by the stars, yes? So if fortune has decreed that all my enemies are here near this island, it will be foolish of me if I don't take advantage of it. Fortune has granted me this opportunity. I need to make use of this opportunity. So, and then what does he say? No more questions. That's all I can tell you for now. Thou art inclined. The magic of Prospero starts off. Miranda goes off to sleep. Yes. Then he turns on. Come away, servant. I'm ready. You have the scene with Ariel, his servant first, and then Caliban, his slave, next. That is the second part of Act 2, Scene 2. Thank you for today. Do revisit, read the text, and I'm sure you'll be able to understand the flow of events that have taken place. Thank you. Take care.